I mean, the whole point of free speech, free speech is only relevant. The First Amendment is only relevant if you allow people you don't like to say things you don't like. Because if you like it, you don't need a First Amendment. So the whole point of free speech is that, frankly, even people you hate say things you hate. Because if people you hate can say things that you hate, that means that they can't stop you from saying what you want to say.
We have the power. For some things, as Lincoln said, that we do better together than we can do for ourselves.
Looked straight into the feeding jaws of capitalism and said, "Yes, Daddy, please."
Prescription drug abuse is a major health epidemic in the U.S.
Free speech absolutism. So that's the phrase that Elon Musk used to justify his purchase of Twitter. He suggested that it wasn't free enough and that too many people were being... When I saw that phrase, I thought it raised my suspicion, because the phrase free speech does the work of the phrase. I mean, we know what free speech is and what it means. That's the first thing. And the second thing is that there's nothing in human affairs that is absolute. And if you try to make anything absolute, you'll get a bad outcome. Absolute equality, you'll get dystopia, as in the Soviet Union.
The Soviet Union? I thought you guys broke up.
Yes, that's what we wanted you to think.
There's always exceptions to the rule. We believe that free speech is essential for a healthy society. If you make a very vehement criticism of the government or its policies or the politicians, you point out what you feel to be either corruption, then you're allowed to criticise them, and quite vehemently, and you're allowed to point out with no feeling that you'll be apprehended or there'll be no dark forces acting upon you.
I'm gonna need you to find him and turn him.
Really? Well, maybe I can make him go by, but all the way is gonna be tough.
No, I mean turn him to the dark side.
Well, yeah, I thought that's what you... Oh, of the Force.
Yeah.
Yeah, for doing so, including having your speech shut down completely in some way or other. You don't want speech that incites violence. And it's in most legal codes that if you incite violence directly towards a group or a person, that's actually illegal. But there's another way of inciting violence, and it's called stochastic speech. That is where you create an atmosphere where violence is part of the solution. Stochastic speech, where you're generally increasing the atmosphere into a more violent, and you're sort of suggesting that violence is a solution to our problems. So the reason why stochastic speech is a problem is that you might not be directing speech at one particular individual or group, on that day, in that moment. But by creating that atmosphere, some individuals out there will feel motivated and act upon it. So somebody will die or somebody will be injured. So your stochastic speech is dangerous. We realise how dangerous bullying is in the school or anywhere in the workplace. It's just negative, and it's not the way to go about getting yourself a raise or getting yourself promoted, or getting rid of those in your company or school that you'd feel are a threat to you in some way or other. You imagine they're a threat if you imagine they're a threat to you. And the final funny cliched comment is you can't yell fire in a theatre. So free speech absolutist? No, I don't think so.
This is where I'm face mashed with Post Malone.
So you can't go out and defame somebody's character untruthfully. So, for example, if you said, if you were telling everybody or in some public forum that a certain individual has been prosecuted for fraud and jailed in the past, and that is absolutely not true, that's defamation of character. The defence of defamation is truth. So if you say something that is true about a person, then you're allowed to do that. It's the defence is truth. So defamation of character is also another exception to free speech, and for a good reason. And no, I don't think too many people disagree with that. So there's a common sense element here. Let's just talk about other freedoms. right throughout our society we have freedoms to do things. There's freedom of enterprise, for example. Let's take logging companies. So they are free to log we want the wood for furniture and to build houses. But there's a curtailment of that freedom. They're not free to log the national forest, obviously for good reason. There's an environmental aspect here. So you can't have absolute freedom in that regard. And many, many other curtailments of free enterprise. So enterprise is free, but we've got to protect society from some of the more nefarious aspects of free enterprise, or when companies go too far, impinge upon our environment or our health, for example. Okay, just quickly, medicine. 1 tablet might cure you, 10 tablets will kill you. So there's no absolute freedom. There's no absolute aspect to it. There's always a nuance involved. And I talked before about equality. So equality, equity, fairness. These are all good concepts. Sorry, I pointed at the camera. These are good concepts, good ideas. However, you can't take them to the absolute, because you'll get a dystopian, a negative outcome. So you can't make equality, absolutely true, like everyone is absolutely equal. You will get a dystopian, because it doesn't allow for anthropology, other aspects of society that we want to be. Whilst we don't want to say everybody who gets rich is done it off their own, back. We do want to say that, if they get anybody gets very rich, they can share. Hello, we do have a dog in the studio. That's Bones, by the way. Countries like Soviet Union, North Korea, you've got incredible dystopian outcomes from trying to do something absolute. Okay, so now we never talk about freedom of speech advocates never talk about to how many they get to speak. And this is very important, because what are we saying? We're saying freedom of speech is to speak to somebody as if everybody is speaking to the same number, or one person, or 3 people. But if you've got a platform like Twitter, you're speaking to 200 million people, you have in a sense, you have not so much a greater freedom to speak, but a far more greater outcome of your speech. So that's why in the Australian media laws, we used to have laws that said that if you own a TV station in one city, you can't also own a newspaper in that city. And that didn't stop them from the freedom of speaking through their TV station or their newspaper, but it did sort of suggest that we want to hear a plurality of voices. And therein lies the freedom that we want. We need a plurality. We need different voices, and one person shouldn't dominate the media. That's anti-democratic. So there's another aspect to freedom of speech that we have to always be thinking about as well, about how many people you've got in your audience. There are people who are just trolls, and they just enjoy being a ratbag, and I've encountered them when I've gone onto certain right-wing websites. I write one criticism against, for example, Donald Trump, and you get this huge avalanche of not argument. It's not argument, it's just abuse. I don't know. I think this type of speech is just it's antisocial, and I'm not sure whether you can't make a law against it, but it's not helpful. And I just want to call out the trolls right there. So Musk calls himself a free speech absolutist. And then he buys Twitter, one of the world's biggest social media platforms. And what does he do? He begins by curtailing speech. In India, he banned 120 journalists and the BBC because he was asked to by the government. It was a political decision, not a legal decision. And yesterday, where Joe Biden pulled out of the race, presidential race, and Kamala Harris may well be the new running.
You can see Vice President Kamala Harris there stepping up to the mic, her first rally as a presidential candidate since President Biden dropped out. Let's listen in.
This, of course, is the first time that we are hearing from him. We did report earlier that President Biden and Vice President Harris did speak on the phone earlier today. That is not surprising.
Just a new political account on Twitter. I'm going to keep saying Twitter. I can't say X. It doesn't make sense to me. It was a bad decision to change the name. So she started an account, and huge amounts of people tried to subscribe and couldn't. They were blocked. And of course, there was an uproar, and then Twitter has allowed subscribers to her account. I'll leave it to you to decide whether that was a coincidence or a technical problem or not. You can guess what I think. I don't think it's possible. I don't think it's a coincidence, because from a person who owns the site, gets involved in the site, and has just said that he wants to put $45 million a month to Donald Trump's campaign, moving his companies out of California because he doesn't like the trans issue, that the new law. He's got a daughter who's trans who never talks to him. There you go. So you're talking about somebody who really, really wants to curtail the speech of his political opposites. So he's declared his political position. Is that a coincidence that the new candidate had found herself in a situation where no one could subscribe? You be the judge. I don't have the evidence. The side that wants to usher in fascism and a dictator. Now, under dictatorial regimes, free speech is ended. It's ended completely. It's finished. It's finito. Zero, let alone absolute.
Whoa, just take it easy, man.
Every fascist regime in history has put an end to free speech. No exceptions. You're not allowed to criticize the government. So free speech absolutists actually want to end free speech. Wow. Think about that.
Hey, don't worry, dude. I just want to make sure everything's working correctly. Okay, yeah, we're good. It worked. Come on, get up. Quit being such a baby.
That's who they're backing. So the big con is in. There is something that you have to watch out for with confidence tricksters. One of their favourite tricks is the bigger the lie, the more likely it is that it will be believed. That's a phenomenon that exists. It's true. We have the big lie. There is a vast conspiracy to steal the 2020 election. That's a big lie. And a lot of people believe it. Musk is saying, I'm a free speech advocate, but he's just pledged $45 million, as I said, per month to help the party get elected. That is outright saying that they will punish those who don't say what they want, who are saying that the free press are enemies of the people. This is such fascist talk. You cannot get better fascist talk than that. It comes with the end of free speech. This is who he backs. This is the free speech absolutist. There are boundaries at everything that humans do in the modern context. That's called civilization. That's what that is. Let's celebrate free speech and save it from the so-called free speech absolutists. Thank you very much. I look forward to talking to you next time.